Thanks for staying with us. The Vice Chancellor of Macpherson University, Professor Francis Igbason, has called on the federal government to include private university students in the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund, and grant private institutions access to the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, Tetfunds. He described their exclusion as unjust, arguing that private universities also contribute to national development. Igbason emphasized that inadequate funding remains a major challenge and that TED Fund access would significantly improve infrastructure and training. He also urged the government to extend NEL Fund benefits to private university students, stating they deserve the same financial support as their public counterparts. Ahead of the university's 8th and 9th convocation, he announced that 281 students would graduate, including 24 with first-class honors. He also highlighted the institution's compulsory 4-year entrepreneurship training and showcased new facilities like a 5,000-seater hall, an anatomy lab, and a live radio studio. Our guest this morning is Dr. Oludare Akinlaja, Managing Partner, OAR&D Company. Good morning and welcome, Doctor, to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning.
I was trying to call it O and D. What's the meaning of OAR and D?
So it's Oludare Akinlaja Research and Development Company.
Okay, I see that now. All right. Now we're talking education, and the private universities are also calling on the federal government to allow them access the NEL Fund. What do you think about that?
It was very funny when I heard it. What you're trying to say is you are trying to ask the federal government to begin to control your university because you're a private university, meaning that you set your fees, you have your regulations, you have your internal corporate governance, yet you are asking for something that is government regulated. Now, if you collect government funds, will government be able to then regulate everything that you do in your universities? So I understand that even as global practice, there's some form of partnership between government and private universities. But on this issue of loans and all of that, your fees are probably one of the highest because you're a private university, right? So how do you want government to manage that? Do you want to drop your fees to a particular amount of money, then tell government to cover a particular cost? Or do you want government to say, okay, you know what, because of these loan issues, can we then maybe reduce what you give back to the university, government with research? There are other ways they could partner with government, but you see on that loan issue and fees, I'm not sure it's going to be something the government is going to listen to.
But these loans are not grants. They are given as loans to be paid back. So what's wrong in a private university students accessing this loan, just like you can go to the bank and access loan and then pay back? So long as your commitment to pay is there, what is wrong with it?
It's going to bloat the government budget. The government already has its universities it's dealing with, which is where its interest lies. You told the government you want to operate a university, right? Meaning that you have a structure, a system, a strategy to operate your universities, and the government allowed you to operate your university. So what are you going back to that same government for loans? If you cannot operate university, probably you keep the university and don't bother about the university. Just let it lie. I'm not sure it's going to be something that is going to be listened to in that light, because it's a business, right? Let's be frank. The universities are run like private businesses. So why will you disturb the government to come and help you give loans to students who want to attend that university?
So what would have been your own suggestion seeing this?
For me, I think instead of asking for government for loans as regards fees, what they should be having conversation with government on is curriculum and the learning issues, right? How do you partner with government to research, telling government, oh, we are training so and so number of students. Can you make our learning and curriculum more adequate? Can you help us go into partnership to get research funds for the global institutions and all of that? The learning is the issue. You see that fees and how students pay it. It's not going to, because you are you are the one that wants more students, right? You want more students, that's why you want loans. Because more students will come to university, means you are going to be able to make more money as a university. Because the university is not even paying the loan, if you know who's going to pay back the loans. Students, right? So the university will still make money using government. No, so it's the model is not going to work. Instead, why don't they partner governments on research issues? I saw also there's that TED fund conversation. That TED fund should be on research issues. How can government subsidize research issues and have conversation around research and learning issues, which is a very important part of the university.
I was even thinking is the TED fund that didn't make any sense for a private university to ask for, because TED fund also caters to the needs of universities in terms of infrastructure and all that. That's what TED fund covers. And if a private university has said, okay, we want to be a university, you should know your pocket and be able to provide the infrastructure for yourself. But for the students that are also Nigerians that are thinking of a better life, even though some of them go to private universities, not because their parents are so well to do,
that they have
but they want to finish on time. They want to make sure that there are no strikes and there are no other distortions to their educational journey. And that's why they go to private universities. And now they're finding it difficult, especially in this economy. Would it not be unfair to say, okay, Nigerians, even though you are Nigerians, because you elected to go to a private university, we cannot support you in any way? That's why I'm still confused.
No, so you see the TED fund now. You see why the TED fund is even an easier conversation. Remember, how is the TED fund generated? Remember, it is 2% education tax from private companies. Right? So it's even going to be an easier conversation. And TED Fund does not only do infrastructure. TED Fund has some of its budget accrued to research, to learning, to making learning more comfortable for universities. So that's even a place you can even have a better conversation on, because the students are the ones that are going to be directly affected, and there will not be any payback of any sort. Do you understand what I'm saying? But with the loans, the students are still going to pay back when the university has already made its money. You understand? So for the people who are designing the fashion, when they're wondering, the university is going to eat their cake and have it.
So why do we have to help you?
Do you understand? Yes, you are eating your cake and have it. Why are we helping you? But if it is to make the learning important, where the student is going to directly get the effect, you understand, without having to have some form of payback of any sort, that's even an easier conversation.
Okay, now, if we have this NEL fund working, I know that in some universities it has not started working, even as we speak right now. But if we have it 100% working in all the universities and students can access these loans, which they will pay back later anyway, it means that the population in universities might increase because students are confident that they can go to school, come out, and then look for a job before they pay off these loans. Now, what does the government need to do to accommodate the population explosion, so to speak, if it were to happen in the Nigerian universities right now?
So there's already a population challenge. I know I'm sure we've had previous conversations. People don't even know our universities are not even enough as it is. You understand? To accommodate people who are writing JAMB every year, right? You have almost 1.9 billion people writing JAMB, and universities can probably only take 700,000 thereabout. So there's already a population explosion challenge. I think what needs to be done is that there needs to be a narrative that is set. I know in Africa, we don't like that narrative, that everybody needs to find what is important to him or her. Universities, polytechnics, the technical expression, we need to find, because you can't not always have, or you can't have space for everybody, as the case may be. We need to start finding ways where we can create learning pathways for different people that is also excellent and efficient enough to make them valuable contributors to the society. You understand what I'm saying? They must be able to know that they can go to a polytechnic and still come out as a valuable contributor to the society. They can go to a technical college and become valuable contributors to the society. As far as we still have that perception where only people who are university graduates who go to a certain level of standard are going to be respected, as the case may be, you can't do anything to control that population explosion. You are going to have that population explosion. And of course, I know that there are also even strategies where they will be using to check or cut the number of people, probably through interviews, probably through your grades, So I think there's already a sieving process, to be able to know that it's not everybody that can go through that fund, as the case may be.
So knowing that, of course, there's this explosion when it comes to the amount of people that write JAM every year, and we do not have enough universities in some countries. The government still supports private universities, knowing that we need these universities alongside the ones that we have to be able to cater or accommodate the amount of people that we need to educate every year. So don't you think Nigeria needs to also find ways to maybe help with funding, or maybe alternative sources of funding? How do you think the government can play in that without overburdening its own resources?
So the 700,000 I counted is plus private universities. So even with private universities,
we still do not have enough.
You don't even have enough.
Wow.
I hardly see countries where government implements funding directly into private systems. What government does is government allows international organizations, like private universities can partner with World Bank, with all those institutions that are, that have education as part of their drive, and give some form of regulatory concessions to private universities, depending on their model, where these funds can freely flow, and universities can use this fund for research and invest. I keep on hammering on the research and learning. It will be difficult to get it for fees. Anywhere in the world, it will be difficult. But if it's an issue of the research on learning itself, on developing solid curriculum, on managing, or even setting up basic infrastructure for them, maybe a working laboratory, it's easier to do all of that than to get loan for fees in that kind of system.
Now, some people are arguing that the problem of university in Nigeria, or education in Nigeria, is not more universities, but building more infrastructure in the existing ones. Because everybody now wants a university or 5 universities in their states and all that, and they're thinking that is not the solution, that the already existing universities can cater to the needs of as many Nigerians as possible if the infrastructure were there. So there would be no need to build more universities when the infrastructure cannot be adequate for the students to learn. Where do you stand on this? Do you support the building of more universities or the building of more infrastructure in the existing universities?
You see, in conversations like this, we must understand that there's a full value chain. Now, even if you expand the infrastructure of already existing universities, do they have enough lecturers in that university, for instance?
But if they were to build more universities, they will employ more lecturers anyway.
If you employ more lecturers, you're going to overbloat your budget. You're going to increase fees. How are you going to fund it? You understand? So this, you see, we first must understand that this thing is like a business. It's a business, Do I have enough to pay? At what point do I scale? You understand? If I'm scaling, do I have enough, to fund my scaling of my universities? Everywhere in the world, they're building more universities. They're expanding. Universities are opening multiple campuses in multiple locations. So people don't always have to come to one particular location, right? So I agree that we must have more universities, because you must understand that universities too is not just about it expanding, it's also where it is located, right? So if you go probably up north or up or towards the southeast in some states, are you going to have population challenge with regards on like states like Lagos? So population also affects the amount of people you are going to have available going to school. I know we know all of that indices matters and plays, right? So these are the questions we need to ask. It's not just scaling the infrastructure or building more universities or what do I support. It's about us looking at what we have, what are our challenges in Nigeria as of today. Instead of scaling the universities or building more universities or even improving it, or even, now infrastructure is not just even expansion. Infrastructure is even making what is available as valuable as possible. Right? So because if people are thinking infrastructure with you expansion, no, it's not all infrastructure is about expansion at the moment. It can also be about making what you have valuable and credible. Right? So there are too many moving pieces that we can't just come to one end of it and pick what we want. We have to look at where we are and say, we don't need to build more universities as it is. We don't need to give more licenses as it is. The universities we have, how possible can we make it competent, pay the lecturers well, make research and learning credible? Also open other channels and pathways to learning. our polytechnics, our technical colleges, make them alternative pathways. Once we perfect that system or work it to a level of efficiency, we can now start redesign and looking for whether we build more or we expand more.
Well, there's a conversation right now about doing something about the degree and HND dichotomy in Nigeria. What's the best way to go about that?
Well, I must tell you globally, the degrees are always different, right? Those who go to the universities and those who go to technical colleges, there's always that dichotomy everywhere we go. The difference is just that if someone that's an HND holder knows that he can also earn valuable money, you know, this conversation is about earning. If someone who earns HND still believes that he can make good money, you know, he can put his skill to good use. He can be a credible member, he can be a valuable member of society and make money. These arguments will no longer have them. Whether you are HND or the master's degree guy can afford to buy a house. I can afford to buy a house. This one can afford to do this. I can afford to do this. I think it's about how we can make them productive members of the society. How do we put our system in such a way that it is productive enough to use the knowledge of those people who go to those systems and make them valuable members of our society?
Interesting. Okay, so looking at the educational system in Nigeria in general, especially when it comes to the tertiary, school system, right? What are some policy changes that you would love to see that would just, ensure that there is adequate funding for even both the, the federal universities, these technical colleges, as well as, having to help private university, because at the end of the day, the common goal is to ensure that most Nigerians, if not all, are educated and they are valuable citizens of the country, like you've said.
I'm a research person and I'm as practical and as scientific as it goes.
Fantastic.
Government will not put money in private university. If you cannot run a university, go and give back your license. It's just the way it's going to be, right?
Right.
But other policies can also happen, like you have said, is for us to ensure that our universities become productive. In fact, there are people who are arguing that our federal universities need to be self-sufficient. Now, at that point, school fees will increase. Universities can no longer ask government for everything. If that kind of thing happens, for instance, because you want to be self-sufficient, meaning you want to find a way to generate your own funds and make your money, and not ask government how you spend the money. Because if government is giving you money, they will ask you how you spend the money.
You have to be accountable.
He who pays the piper
Dictates
sometimes dictates the tune.
So apart from access to infrastructure, government also needs to pay attention to research and learning. That for me is my greatest passion. Let what we learn be applicable in life. That for me is what our university should be paying attention to. How can you make research work? How can you make students attend universities and come out and know that they learned? People who learn computer science never touched a computer. We should be having this conversation in 2025. Lecturers are still giving garbage in and garbage out. They are still going to go and download and just give them what they have learned in 1979, 1976. Universities are not, no university is doing digital media in Nigeria as of today. Those are the conversations I want to be hearing. How we can make our learning effective, our research effective, where students who are there can learn in the best possible environment. They can come out and say to themselves, we can use what we have learned and apply it to society. That is where my own passion lies. And that's why I'm thinking we should look at policy issues.
Okay, what else do you think can make our education system better? You've mentioned some, but maybe there are more. Because right now we're struggling. Education in Nigeria doesn't seem to be anything to write home about. Sorry?
We're going to take politics out of education. Let me give an example. Like now the private argument you're talking about. The federal government just took over a university in Southern Kaduna that is supposed to be a private university. Government had to take it over. Right? While we are struggling with the ones we have, government is still giving people universities, and most of those things is probably politicians who just want to tell their people, I brought some development to our state. And part of development is a university. You are increasing the labor body, you are increasing the budget burden, all because you want to tell people that you brought a university to your state.
A pet project.
A pet project.
Legacy project.
You understand? So we need to take all that thing out of it. That should not be the criteria for some local government should not have a university. There's no reason why it should be there. You don't have the population. They're not a pivotal place, a meeting point in a. So we need to take politics out of education. That for me is even very important. Because the problem with opening universities is if you trace it, it boils down to this very particular thing of people wanting to tell their people that they brought development to their state. This is my own pet project. How can you open universities as a pet project? Who will fund it?
Okay, it's like building a flyover where there are no vehicles. You know, you just need a flyover to tell people that I worked when I was there. This is what I did. Well, Dr. Akinlaja, it has been a pleasure having you on the show, but this is where we have to wrap it up. The discussion about education is ongoing. One day we'll get it right. And a nation, as we know, the greatness of a nation is not by the population, it's by how many people are educated enough to make an impact, and that is how it is. We thank you for saying that politics should be removed from education, and I think that's very key. But this is where we have to wrap it up, and we thank you for being a part of our program this morning.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We've been talking to Dr. Oludare Akinlaja, Managing Partner, OAR&D Company. And we were talking about the fact that the private universities are asking for a piece of the cake of NEL fund so that their students can also enjoy these loans.
Well, this is where we have to wrap it up on the show right now. Thank you so much for having the breakfast with us. My name is Rume Paulson.
And I am Nyamgul Agaji. Bye for now.
Have a wonderful day. Good morning.